Great. Okay. Well, I think we are all met. So I will go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Elizabeth Gardner. I am a customer success manager here at ActivePipe. And today we are going to be talking about automation. As I am going, feel free to pop any questions you have into the Q&A or into the chat. Either one works. I'll try to keep an eye on them. And I'll try to answer your questions as we go. All right, so automation in ActivePipe. Obviously, it's a big time saver if you do set it up. Now, the first caveat I have to tell you is there is one product level, our base product level, that does not include automation. So if you're following along today and you notice that you don't have some of the buttons that I am showing, it's likely because you are on that lower product tier. And so if that's the case, it's a great moment to reach out to your point of contact at your brokerage and let them know that you are interested in upgrading potentially. All right, so now with that caveat out of the way, let's get into it. So when we talk about automation, there's really kind of two different categories, and they're both important. So the first is recurring emails, and the second would be drip campaigns or follow-up campaigns. The difference is that in the first one, you would build one base template of an email, and then it automatically updates itself and sends itself on a pre-designated cadence. So the straightforward example of something like that is a monthly sold recap, or maybe a weekly just listed email, something like that. And then the other major category to automation is going to be drip campaigns or follow-up journeys. And those aren't a recurring email. So it would be a series of different emails, or it could even just be two emails. And they would either be triggered as a condition of a follow-up, or they might just be scheduled to send to a particular group of people, one every, let's just hypothetically say 10 days, something like that. So there's kind of those two different styles. I want to start with the first group, which is those recurring campaigns. And you can start by either building the email first, or you can start by building the campaign. And if you're relatively new to ActivePipe, as a reminder, the difference here is that the email is the actual content you are sending. It's the actual email itself, versus the campaign is how, when, who you're delivering that content to. So you could start by creating your content first, or you can also start by building the structure first, whichever you prefer. You can do it both ways. I typically show building the email first because that's the more fun part. But I think it's actually, it makes a little sense when we're learning to actually start with the campaign. So that's what I'm going to do today. So I'm going to go into the campaigns tab, and then in the top right hand corner, I have my create campaign button. So I will click on that. And then you will have to name your campaign. So I'm going to use the example of a monthly sold recap. So that's what I'm going to name my campaign. I will say for recurring campaigns, it is especially helpful to put the sending cadence in the title. So that way you don't have to guess or remember what you set up and go into the actual campaign. You can just see it from the list very easily. So highly recommend put your cadence in there. It'll help you in the long run. All right. So this is my campaign builder. By default, I am always going to be prompted to start with a recipients block. Then from here, it's almost like a choose your own adventure, and I can add as many blocks as I want. But in a simple campaign and for recurring campaigns, it's really just three things that you have to do. You have to know who you're sending to. You have to know when you're sending. So that's going to be this date and time scheduler option. And then you have to know what you're sending. So that would be an email, which we'll build after this. So I've just added those 3 blocks by using my little blue plus sign here. And for a recurring campaign, this is all you need. You need who, when, and what. That's it. From here, you would set who the audience is for this particular campaign. So for a monthly sold recap, I would probably be targeting past clients, or if I have them segmented as potential sellers, anyone who might be in those groups who it would be advantageous for them to know what the value of their home is, that type of thing. So I'm going to select my potential seller tag. And let's see, is there anything else I want to add? Maybe just the seller tag as well. And once I click apply, now you can see these 2 tag groups are included. Now I got to that by clicking my browse button. But if you haven't discovered it yet, you can also just start typing in this little drop-down box, and you will see that your tags appear down below, and you can select them that way as well. And then lastly, if you are doing something that is applicable to your entire audience, you can always swipe this on, send to all contacts, and that is an option as well. For mine, I'm going to leave it on these 2 particular groups. Okay, then I would need to determine when I want this to send. So if it's something monthly, I might say, let's do a Tuesday morning at the very end of the month. I like to do, for something like this, I like to do the last week of the month. Typically, the first week of the month tends to be heavy on things like newsletters or market reports, those type of things. So I don't want to put it all in one week of the month. So I'm going to choose the last week. So let's do starting on the 28th. Now, if I want this to recur, meaning if I want this to go out every month, there's one last step that is the critical point of making this happen. And that is checking this box that says repeat this schedule. It's as simple as that. All you have to do is click that, but it is very important that you do click it if you want it to repeat. So once you check that box, you'll be prompted to choose at what cadence do you want this to go. So we have some pretty standard things like bi-weekly, monthly, quarterly, you name it. For my example, we're going to do every month. All right, and now at this point, my campaign is built. I have the structure that will deliver this email every single month for me. The last step here is to create the actual email that I want to send. So I could save this and go back out into the emails tab and go that route. But what I can also do is I can just create the email directly from the campaign in here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to click this create button. And you'll see that when I click that, it takes you right on in to your templates. Now, as a reminder, for most of you, you will have templates and you will also have shared emails. Templates are going to be like the bones of building your own DIY emails. And shared emails are things that your brokerage or your brand have shared down to you. And typically shared emails are like ready to send. They're pretty much built out and you could just send them as is, versus templates are designed for you to kind of fill in the blank type thing. But you don't start from scratch with these. And that's the point, is we at least get you all the branding and the structure that you need. But then you fill in with whatever properties you might want or other content you might want. All right, so if I'm doing a monthly sold, I'm going to look for a template that has something to do with solds. And look, it's actually my first one. So I will click that. I do have to name my email just like I had to name my campaign. And click continue. And we are headed into the email editor at this point. And I got a question, so let me read it real quick. Great question. Okay, someone asked, they noticed that I was selecting those particular tag groups that were potential seller and seller. And they asked if I keep adding people to those tag groups as I have this campaign set up, If I set this campaign up today and I only have 20 people in those tag groups, what about in 6 months from now when I have 100 people in those tag groups? Will this campaign only be sent to that original 20? Or is it going to include all of the recently added contacts as well? And the answer is the latter. So as you add people to those tags, they get added to this campaign. So in this example, it is triggered. It'll update every month. If it were a weekly email, it would update every week. So every time ActivePipe goes to deliver this email, it'll say, oop, I need these tag groups, and it'll look for anyone new, and they will be included. All right, so let's finish up creating my email here. Now, in my template, I already have a preloaded message. Now, if you don't, you can always add one. You can drag in a heading or a column, whatever you may need to create a simple message at the top. You could also go no message if you really wanted to just keep it straightforward, up to you. Totally personal preference there. The important part is that when you come to the property panel, firstly, you will definitely want either a grid or a list, because those are the multiple property options. And for something like this, we definitely want to represent multiple properties. So I have the list in here. I think I will keep it that way, but just for reference, here's what the grid looks like. If you prefer that, go for it. All right, now, if you were to be sending something out, like you just got a new listing and you wanted to quickly blast it out on your own, what you probably would have done in the past is you would have come in here and you click this house icon and you choose the property in question. Now, that is manually choosing a property, and it serves you great in some circumstances, but for these recurring emails, you don't want to do that. You want to use our property toggle, which is right up in here, toggle feed. If you click on that, it's going to swipe over to the right, and then you'll be prompted to define properties. And basically what this is you are just setting the filter criteria for what properties you want to be pulled into this email. So you're just setting up, filters. Okay, so first things first, I want to include up to, let's say, 10 properties. Now, if I had a month that only 8 properties had sold for whatever reason, only 8 will pull into this email, and the email will still send. It's just going to have 8. So this is maximum. So it's up to however many you set here. Moving right along, I'm going to keep all my property types included because I'm not feeling picky. But if you only wanted to represent, for example, like single family homes, this is how you would choose that. And then listing status, these do need to be sold properties. So I'm going to change this from current to sold. And then zoning types, you can also do, if you have an MLS that gives you both commercial and residential, you can also limit that down here as well. All right, then order by. So the order of which my properties appear in this email, I can change. In my circumstance, I think I will probably do date sold, newest to oldest. You could also do something like by price. If you wanted to represent the highest price sold listings, you could do that. In my case, I think I'm just going to do date sold. Okay. That is the basics tab. So you're really just limiting down what type of properties you want to be included in this email and how many of them. We're going to move into the advanced tab. And in this one, there is a key component here, and that is checking this second box. Now, there are 2 checkboxes, and I'll explain the difference. The first checkbox here up top is for events that have not happened yet. They're upcoming events, and that's why it says in the next. So they're in the future. Really, for most of you, the only case you will use that for is for upcoming open homes. So some people will create an automated, here's this weekend's open houses. And if you were going to do that type of automation, you would be using this one. But in our example, monthly sold recap, we want to use the second checkbox, which is for events that have already happened. So things that are in the past. If it was listed, that already happened. If it was sold, that already happened, that type of thing. So I'm going to use my drop down, check sold. And then because this is a monthly email, I am going to up my days here to be 31 days. Now we don't have 30 and a half or anything like that. So you got to pick between 30 or 31 if you're going to do it a monthly. All right. Okay, so once we have this checkbox done, I could be done at this point because I have it limited down to sold properties and they had to have been sold in the past month. I could end it there and call it quits. I want to show you just a couple more things though. If you wanted to take this a step further, you can. So if you wanted to set a particular price range, you are able to do that. So for example, if you wanted to really just target like luxury listings, that type of thing, and you only want to represent sold properties that are above a certain price point in this email, you could put that in here. So I could say only listings, let's say over $1 million. If you leave either one of these blank, you're just saying either to the floor or to the ceiling. So by leaving this right one, the maximum blank, it's going to just be $1 million plus. There's no roof to it. Basically, whatever is in the MLS, it'll be pulled in here as long as it's over $1 million. And then it's in reverse. If you leave the bottom one blank, it's going to be from the lowest price to whatever the upper boundary you set is. The next checkbox can be helpful for some types of emails, so I'll point it out. Only include agents listings. What that does is if you are the agent yourself and you check this box, only your own properties that you were the listing agent for would be pulled in. So that can be helpful if you wanted to do a like just listed email that sends out as soon as you get a new listing, that type of thing. Now, if I'm doing, in my example, a monthly sold recap, I personally probably would not check this checkbox just because the goal of this email in my scenario is to represent the market that I work in. And not necessarily do I have enough properties that I was a listing agent that I sold in the past month to accurately represent what's going on. If you do have that many, congratulations, you're doing awesome. Feel free to check that checkbox. But unless you have quite a bit of volume, then you probably, for an example like this, you probably would leave that unchecked. All right, moving right along. The last thing I'll point out is you can restrict by geography. So if you really want to target one particular area, you can do that. And what I've also seen this is I've seen for someone who, so for example, like the DFW, Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex is a good example of this. They might do a section that's like Dallas area solds, and they might do Fort Worth area solds or something like that. So they would have 2 property panels and 2 headers labeled as such. So you could do that if you wanted. Or you can really get specific. If you're targeting a specific zip code, you can winnow it down to that as well. I will point out that these are what's called multi-select. So you can, let's see if I can guess what zip codes are in here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. Nah, okay. It is multi-select, so you can enter multiple is the point. So if there's like 2 zip codes you want to target, you can enter both. It's not a one shot and you're done type of thing. Okay, so that's just kind of some good tips to know. But for my case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say any type of property up to 10 has to be sold and has to have been sold in the last 31 days. Once I click continue, I'm not sure my demo will do it. Yeah, I don't think so. But assuming I did have properties that were sold in the last month in my MLS, then they would pull right in here. I'm in a fake account, and so we don't have any fake properties that were sold in the past month. Now, this also does bring up a good point though, because if you ever run into a scenario where you have a recurring or automated email that has properties in it, but no properties match the criteria that you've set, then your email will not send. So you're not at risk of sending out a blank email or anything like that. ActivePipe is smart enough to say, oh, there's nothing in here, don't send this out. So if you ever ran into that circumstance, not to fret, you would be okay. We are smart enough to stop the email if it is blank. All right. Now, I would need a subject line for this email before I can hit send. And so I might just name it something simple for now, your monthly property. Something like that for now. Click save. Oh, I need a category. Some of you will have categories, some of you will not. Let's see. There we go. Click save. Okay. And now we are done. So I have created the campaign. I have created my email. Oh, let's see. I might be in multiple accounts. I have created my campaign. I've created my email. And now at this point, all I would need to do is be sure that I save my campaign. And then once I'm ready, I would activate it. The difference between these is you use save if you want to come back and make edits in the future. You hit save and activate if you are ready for this thing to be scheduled and for it to go out whenever the next date that you have set here is. All right, the last thing I'll say about a recurring campaign is I've gotten this question before for monthly cadences. We send it based on the number of the date. So what that means is this would go out every 28th of the month. It's not the day of the week, it's by the date itself. So just as an FYI, in this case, my email would always go out on the 28th. All right, so that's recurring campaigns. Feel free to pop any questions you have into the chat and the Q&A, just as a reminder. But let's start looking at what we would do if we wanted to do kind of a drip style automation. All right, so we are still going to start in campaigns for this one, and I'm still going to use my create campaign, and I still have to name it. So let's do, let's say welcome cadence. So this might be something I set up for a new contact is added to my account, and I want to put them through just a few emails to see if I can either collect a little bit more information from them about where they're at in their life cycle or what their needs are. And I also just want to acknowledge that, you know, they've signed up for my database and that we're connected. So something like that. So let's call it a welcome cadence. Now, this by default, again, we're always going to start with recipients, but in my case, I would want this to be triggered anytime a new person is added to my account. So in that scenario, what we would do is we would use a trigger, which is on subscription. So when a contact is first subscribed, e.g. a welcome email, ironic that it's my exact example. Okay, so that on subscription means as soon as they're subscribed in my account, then this campaign will be triggered. So I'll select that. Part of these, though, is for this one, you would want to swipe this on that says all contacts. And what I find helpful when you're doing campaigns like this is to kind of talk it out with if-then statements. So here's how I would say that for this particular example. I would say, okay, ActivePipe, you are going to look at all of my contacts, and if they are, once they subscribe, then we're going to do the next thing. So I definitely find that helpful. Just as a tip, if you kind of talk it through like that, definitely a good way to kind of work your way through it. All right, so ActivePipe is going to look at any and all contacts, and then as soon as they are subscribed, then what are we going to do? We are going to send them the first email. Now, in my example, this would probably be my like original welcome email, which might say a little bit about myself, maybe a little bit about the brokerage and why I am the best at what I do and why I do what I do and why I'm passionate about helping whoever this contact is in their real estate journey. So that is probably what my welcome email would talk about. And that's the first step. But then maybe after a few days, I want to follow up with this person. So if that's the case, then we are going to use our blue plus sign again. And you'll see ActivePipe is dynamic in the options that we offer you in our campaign builders. So we're trying to take a little bit of the guesswork out of this, or we basically make it so that you can't break it. So the only option after that is to delay. So it's to give a period of time until the next thing happens. So maybe I'll do it in 2 days later, because I want to stay fresh and be sure that I can stay in touch at the beginning if they do have a more urgent need. All right, so welcome email, then we're going to delay 2 days, and then I have a few more options here. So I could keep it simple, straightforward, and just send them another email. But what I want to point out here is you can also use what are called conditions. And these are basically, you're going to say, for the next email that we send in this chain, you're putting a condition on it, meaning the contact has to have done something or not done something, or have received something or not received something in order to get to that next step. So let's use this if viewed email condition. So what that is basically asking is, did they view a particular email or not? And what a lot of people will end up doing is they base it off of the previous one. You can base it off of other emails as well, but in my example, it makes a lot of sense if I were to do it right off of the welcome email. Now, I could build something for the people who did not view or open the welcome email, or I could build something different for the people who did open the welcome email. And that's kind of the beauty of this. So I'm going to say if they did view the first email, then go ahead, send them that second one. And the chain could continue for however long I may want it. And you pretty much just keep using your little blue plus sign here. I want to talk you through some of these other ones. If clicked linked, very similar to if opened email. Same with clicked property. That one's fairly straightforward. But I want to talk you through, and if sent email, that one's pretty similar. But these two are not as obvious. And so I want to talk through those. So this if attribute condition, you would traditionally use this towards the beginning of a drip campaign, probably. And what it does is it allows you to basically filter your contacts so that if you didn't already have a tag set up or an audience set up, what you could do is, I'm going to reverse this for a second to kind of show you what I mean. What you could do is, let's see, this is how I've seen this used the most. Instead of going and creating a whole new tag, what you can do is you can just say, okay, well, I want everyone in a particular area to get this email. And so if that's the case, you could go by city, you could also go by zip code. But let's just say I'm going to talk to only the people in Fort Worth, but I don't want to talk to the people in Dallas. Well, if that's the case, you could go and create a tag, or you can just use this little filter in your campaign builder. And now ActivePipe is going to say, okay, let's look at all of your contacts. And then let's just say we're scheduling this for now. But before we go, we only want to take the people who are actually in Fort Worth. So we're going to look at all the contacts, but only the people who have their address set to Fort Worth will get the email. So that's a nifty way, kind of quick way to filter things down. I've also seen this actually used quite a bit by email address, particularly if you only want to email people in your own brokerage. You could come in here and you could say, like, for example, with ActivePipe, I would say their email address has to contain at activepipe.com. And now I'm only going to be talking to my contacts who have my domain. Someone asked a question about, can you filter by neighborhoods, which is a good question. So in this particular module right here, you cannot filter by neighborhoods. In the property panel, you can filter by neighborhood. So if you only wanted to pull in properties in a particular neighborhood, or for example, if you work in my people who work are on like coastal cities, they have condo buildings, or if you do retirement communities, that type of thing. If you only want to show 3 particular condo buildings, you can do that in the property panel. And that is exactly where we looked at how you can filter by city, zip code, any of those geographies. That neighborhood filter is in there, but not in the if attribute section, because this is based on contact information, not property information. So this is dependent on the you having the contact's address in your database. Okay, so that's the if attribute. And then I want to explain the if tagged as well, because this one is super, super helpful. So similarly to how we did the as soon as they're added to your database on subscription option, this if tagged is very similar in that what you're saying here is they have a particular tag. Now, actually, let me show you, because there are 2 different ones. So there's tag changed, or there's that if tag. So the if tag would be something like you start by sending an email to everyone, but then in the follow-up, you only want it to go to a particular group of people. So that's this scenario. First email goes to everyone. Second email goes to only a particular tag group. Now, the other option, not to be confused as the same thing, is this tag change. So this would be as soon as someone is added to a particular tag, then start a series of events. So this one could be useful for something like, okay, as soon as my contact is changed to have the tag past client, meaning like you've closed, you transacted with them, and now instead of being a buyer in your CRM, they're now going to be labeled as a past client. This trigger would work great as a follow-up for that. So tag changed, you would say, past client, oops, if you can type correctly, that helps. Past client added to their account. Then what do we want to do? Maybe we want to wait a week, and then we want to send a follow-up to them that asks them to write a review, something like that. This is exactly how you would do that. So as a helpful hint again, a way to look at this is again to talk it through with if then. So, okay, ActivePipe, look at all of my contacts, and if they have the past client tag added to their account, then I want you to wait, let's say 7 days, and then I want you to send them an email. That's how I would talk through that one. So this is a great way if you do want to automatically trigger something like follow-up testimonial or review, that type of thing. Just make sure you're managing your tags, have a campaign turned on like this, and then it just happens in the background. And that's the beauty of it, is that you set this campaign up once and then it just runs in the background, and all you have to do is just remember to manage your contacts, but your emails are managing themselves at that point, really. All right, that's pretty much it. So we talked through doing a recurring campaign, and we talked through doing a drip style campaign. If you have any last minute questions, feel free to pop them in now. But I want to recap, if you need help, if you're getting in there and exploring and then you get stuck, we have plenty of help resources. So the first thing is our support website, which is support.activepipe.com. I'll put it into the chat. I definitely recommend that you bookmark this page because it is super, super helpful. You can come in here and look up pretty much anything. So if you needed a reminder on what each of those triggers and conditions mean, then you can just come in here and search, and we likely have an article and a video on most things. So whether you're a visual learner, or if you're like a step-by-step instruction learner, we probably have you covered for both. And then we also have a help chat. You can talk with our support team 24 hours a day, 5 days a week. So we're always here for you. And then the last option you have as well is you can also email us, which is support@activepipe.com. I would also say most of you all too have like a marketing point of contact inside of your brokerage that we at ActivePipe are probably talking with on a regular basis. And they probably know a whole bunch and can help you with specific scenarios as well. So always feel free to reach out to them too. All right, everyone. Well, I hope that was helpful. The only other thing I can share with you is that we do post these recordings of these webinars, and you can always find them on our main website, which is activepipe.com, under resources and webinars. So if you ever want to reference back to a webinar, we do post them at the end of the month, and you can find them here under past webinars. So all right, folks. Well, thanks for joining. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your week and happy holidays and happy New Year, everyone.